Hello, my name is Father Juan Velez. I'd like to talk to you about a project, a movie on John Henry Newman. I've been studying this great English thinker for the last 25 years and written a few books about him and articles and chapters and books about him. And of course, to read many other wonderful books on this important figure in English history. His long life has a very fascinating plot. I think for the movie's sake, 3 plots or subplots could be discussed. The first part of the drama, or plot, is Newman's struggle at Oriel College. Oriel College was one of the important colleges in Oxford, and Newman was a tutor, or an assistant teacher, and together with 2 friends who were tutors also, he spent time with the students teaching them. It was individualized learning. Newman studied Aristotle and Cicero and the Greek authors such as Homer, and he learned a great deal from them. But he was concerned not only with the intellectual education of the students, but with their formation of their character and their spiritual life. And wanting to reform the way that the tutorial system was, he got into difficulties with the head of the school. And they went back and forth, Newman wanting to continue the reform, the head of the school wanting to finish the reform, and eventually the head of the school stops giving Newman and his friends students. So basically, they were being pushed out of the school. At that point, one of Newman's friends, another friend, Harold Froude, became ill with tuberculosis. And he invited Newman to go on a trip through the Mediterranean. The second part, or plot, of Newman's life was his trip to the Mediterranean and his illness in Sicily. So one December day, 1832, Newman took to cross the English Channel, and he went on a steamship with his friend Richard Harold Froude, who was ill from tuberculosis. The doctors had told him to go to warmer climate, and they went to Malta, where St. Paul had been shipwrecked. There they had some interesting events, but especially they were moved by going to Greece, and they passed near the island of Ithaca. And Newman imagined the evenings there in Ithaca, where Homer talks about Odysseus, the famous character of the Odyssey. But the most important part, however, is when they return to Rome and they visit Rome. Newman is still an Anglican, but yet he goes to the Vatican and is impressed with the beauty of the Vatican and the story of the martyrs in different parts of Rome. And after this stay in Rome, Newman goes on his own to Sicily, where he wants to see some of the Greek ruins. And while in Sicily, Newman falls ill with a serious illness, probably typhoid, and people think he's going to die. But Newman has the sense that God has a mission for him, that he's not going to die. And so this is kind of the climax of the second drama in his life, this illness, and the idea that he thinks that he's going to live. And he does begin to recover. And he goes to Palermo, where he convalesces, and then takes a sailboat to go to France and then cross France and return to England. On the sailboat, one day, he writes a poem which is well known. Lead, kindly light, amid the encircling gloom, lead thou me on. The night is dark, I am far from home, lead thou me on. And so Newman continues. He's praying to God, to the Holy Spirit, to show him the way forward. And Newman eventually reaches London and then Oxford, and very soon comes the important moment where he and a group of friends, they start the Oxford movement. And this truly becomes an important movement in the Anglican Church, a movement of renewal. So that's the unraveling or the resolution of the second plot, with the height being there, his illness, and then the resolution of that is the start of the Oxford movement. After this comes the third drama in Newman's life, which is the work that he does with his friends to renew the Anglican Church through sermons, through pamphlets that they write called Tracts for the Times, through petitions they do to the Archbishop of Canterbury, and through their personal example and conversations with friends. And through all this, there's a building up of tension of what's going to happen, because there is opposition to the reform, and this all leads to the writing of pamphlet number 90, or tract number 90. And after that tract, many of the Anglican bishops, one after the other, began to condemn Newman's writing. And eventually, after some years of more thinking and praying, Newman moved to a small village outside of Oxford called Littlemore. Newman takes a decision to become Roman Catholic. So that's the resolution of that third drama in his life. And it happens in a very moving, significant scene where Newman asks a preacher called Blessed Dominic Barbieri to come to hear his confession. And this priest comes in the middle of a rainstorm. He comes on a stagecoach, and he arrives to where Newman is staying at Littlemore, and he's drying himself by the fire. The priest, his coat has been drenched in water, and he's drying himself by the fire at night, and Newman comes into the room and kneels before him. Newman, who was a very admired figure, important figure in Oxford, and Newman kneels before him and asks the priest to hear his confession. And the next day, Newman makes a profession of faith. He becomes Roman Catholic. So this is the unfolding of the third drama in the life of John Henry Newman.
John Henry Newman was made a saint in 2019. And it is very likely that in this year or in the coming years, he will be declared a doctor of the church.
This plot, this development in his personality, these themes, I think make for a fascinating movie.
Some good films have been made recently about saints, such as St. Augustine.
And most recently, the life of St. Francis Cabrini. The life of John Henry Newman needs to be told, and perhaps you will be the one to tell that story.